What does it mean to fail? And also, what are some perceptions of failure, and how has your own perception of failure changed? Professionally, but of course, we are here talking about the connection between art and business, so we'll be thinking about this creatively as well. Good morning, guys. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back to Arts and Offers. This is the video podcast from Diverses, where we talk about that intersection between art and business. My name is Geoff.
I'm Matthias.
Hi.
How's it going, man?
We're good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Got some exciting news.
You do have some exciting news.
So I got two pieces of exciting news, which I think are like kind of apropos for what we're talking about. So, exciting news number one, a short film that is actually, it's a poetry film that I created along with my wife Ajane, Ayana Hill, my nieces, and some other really dope poets in our community circle. It was accepted into a film festival in LA, so that's super exciting. And then the other piece of also exciting news is that a chapbook that I worked incredibly hard on, I'm still working on, that I worked really, really hard on, that I'm just as passionate about, was rejected by a magazine. So, I mean, it's so funny because there's like 4 hours of separation between the two. As far as like the emails that are in my inbox, it's like one, like, and like the one that the acceptance came like early in the morning, so it came before I was even awake. And then the rejection came like when I was like up and in good spirits about the acceptance. It's like, whoa, brother, don't be so excited. Here's this rejection. Right. So just two pieces of really, again, just exciting news, good news that, I mean, it's news that I think, it adds like a lot of reflection and perspective to my day so far, to my morning.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Well, hold on. But before we get into it, like, how about you? What's is anything new going on with in the Geoff Anderson?
Nothing universe? Like that. No film festivals. No chapbooks.
You went to a birthday party.
I went to a birthday party for a 7-year-old. Actually, they're twins, so 2 7-year-olds. Yeah.
2 7. Oh, they're twins?
Yeah, they're twins. Yeah. Although one of them was there at the party when the party started, and the other one didn't come till like an hour after. So I don't know what was.
That's how I used to do, like, right? Mary Kate and Ashley on Full House. They're just switch them out.
Well, I guess maybe one was born an hour later, so you gotta wait. You gotta wait till
it's not your time yet.
I don't know how other twin families. I'm only 3 minutes behind, so we always do it at the same time. But maybe it's different for twins. But besides that, no, nothing too crazy. I will say. So we're organizing the 6th poetry retreat. It's going to be happening here in August. So keep an eye out on versuspoetry.com if you're interested, and you're in Columbus or you're able to come to Columbus. That may be an opportunity for you to work in a little bit more intensely with me and other poets to crank out some work. So that's coming up in August. And then tonight I'm meeting with poets who sent in proposals for a poetry conference we're organizing. So we're organizing a poetry conference here in October, that first Saturday in October. And so people sent in proposals, and so tonight we get to talk with them about the conference, set up, logistics, and kind of, for some of them it'll be the first time kind of having an opportunity to lead a workshop or something like that. So just kind of setting some expectations.
That's like really cool, because I think when I'm thinking about like a poetry conference or something like that, I'm never really thinking about like kind of how it's made. You know what I mean? I'm just thinking about kind of the outcome of it. And so I think kind of a look in perspective into, okay, like not even just how it's made, but also, okay, like a lot of these, like what are these people kind of putting together to be able to talk to people about, like, a lot of this stuff is not as out of reach as you may think. And I think it should be packaged to look really like, you know what I mean? Like in any other poetry conference you go to, it should be packaged to kind of like be able to be built up and be really edifying to anybody that's like observing. But yeah, I mean, I think the thought of being able to meet with people that have their proposals and are trying to like work on something to teach to people, I think that's a really cool step, man.
I think it's important because usually poets are just thinking about the writing, but there's so many other elements to it, and I think that the more you talk about your work, not just do the work, I think the more you learn about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if you never have that opportunity to do it, then I think you're a lesser writer for it. So I think this is a great opportunity for development for the people presenting, but then also for the people participating. Also because Columbus, to my knowledge, doesn't really have a poetry conference. Everything it has writing conferences. It has festivals for writing, but it doesn't really have a dedicated conference entirely just for poetry. And so this is our chance to try to rectify that. So
Better now than not now.
Yeah.
The heck yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if no one else is going to do it, then I'll do it. Why not?
Freaking yeah.
But let's get to that rejection a little bit, because I think this ties into the theme of the day, which is, you mentioned taking us to failure and our relationship with failure and perceptions of failure. And one of the things that happened backstage was you were talking about how the rejection, the way you take the rejection now is very different than how you would have taken it maybe a couple of years ago. Can you kind of walk me through that a little bit?
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think there's... Okay, and I made this analogy. I made a post on Facebook. So, and I'll kind of talk about it a little bit, like in this explanation. But years ago, I think that because of the fact that whenever I would work on something, and then I would work on something to get it out to one thing. So, like, I'm working on it with the intent and goal of this being for this competition in specific, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm putting all of my eggs in one basket, and I'm saying, like, this has to work out because the only reason that any of this is happening is for this. I used to do that with like chapbooks, with like I would create, like there'd be like a poetry competition. It would be like this kind of poem, and I would write a whole poem exactly for that, and that's the only reason why I wrote the poem. And then afterwards, I would kind of be really discouraged when it didn't go my way in that regard. And I was like, not only was I discouraged, but I think you start feeling that kind of like almost, and I was talking to a friend of ours, Dante, about this, and I was just like, I feel like rejection, most people get to like rejection number 4 before they just stop trying anything altogether. You know what I mean? That they just decide like this isn't like the space for them, which really you don't even know. Like rejection 20, like by the time you're at rejection 20, it's like it feels like nothing. It feels like like I get rejected for things a lot. You know what I mean? And I think that's a really big part of my journey. And I was talking about this again, just bringing it back to the post. There's a show that is like that I truly love with all my heart. It's called Naruto, and it's also like a manga. But I'm referencing the show right now. But the way, and this is also kind of goes into like film work, and like my like character work when you're creating characters. When I'm creating characters, at the very least, is like the reason that I know the person that I am writing is my protagonist is because I am exposing the reader or the viewer to their flaws and their failures. You know what I mean? Like I'm doing what I can to show you like, hey, this person fails, this person tries, this person is trying over and over and over again. And that's what we see with a character like Naruto. Like we're seeing very constantly this character fail in spaces that other people are succeeding, and we don't even see the rest of their process. We're just seeing like, okay, they're excelling in a space where like our main character has to exert a lot more effort. And I think about that, like, we're all really passionate artists. Like everybody like really wants to do art and they really want to put the work out there. But I'm like, there's only, if I'm submitting to a film festival, I'm submitting somewhere where hundreds if not thousands of other people are submitting things. So there's only a few slots left. There's only a few slots that are available for my work to be exposed in that space. So if I am putting all of my eggs into that one basket and I'm not creating for anything else except for the validation that I could possibly get out of this one thing, then like I'm going to be disappointed by not getting it. And from the frame of mind that I'm processing things is like, I'm right for being disappointed because I didn't create it for any other reason but that. But yeah, I think the big transition that I'm making that I've made, I think over the years, and I kind of made it without really knowing it, but as I made it because I just kept submitting to things and I kept not getting into things, is just realizing like that is kind of your life as an artist. You know what I mean? And that's not even just connected to whether or not you're getting into something that you're trying to publish. It's like, there could be projects that you're working on that aren't super successful. There could be events that you put together that aren't incredibly successful. There could be poems that you're like, I'm really passionate about this poem, and it doesn't go the way that you want it to go. But realizing that, like, you have to keep creating, you have to keep trying, and not trying to lay the fate of your creative world on any one project, any one venture. Like once you realize that, then I think not getting into things or not being accepted into a festival or not being accepted into a mag, there's like something gratifying about it. It's like, okay, now the next part happens where I'm submitting into something else. Or like I know the next thing is supposed to happen now. Whereas, if you're not doing that, then your entire world can collapse just because somebody somewhere else that doesn't know you, that doesn't know your work, that might have had 10 other things going on that day, they might push a button on your submission that says no without really sitting with it or considering it, or anything could be happening. Or they could just validly, there could be a valid, hey, I'm not feeling this work, and they just want to move on from it. So any of those things can be happening, and with that being the reality, none of those things should be the balance between you and being like, hey, I just don't want to do this. I don't want to take this. Yeah, I don't want to take this pathway when it comes to my art anymore. That was a long explanation.
You mentioned a lot of things.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just like, it all happened this morning, so like it's only just now, not morning. So that's like I'm still processing.
Yeah, it's good. I just want to kind of riff on a couple of the points.
Yeah.
One of the first things you mentioned was that a lot of people are stopping at rejection number 4, and it's interesting you say that because I was working with a student, one of my pronunciation students this morning, and we've identified for him a sound that would be very beneficial if he studied more, because it's just recurring. For months I've said, hey, this is a sound that you're consistently mispronouncing, or consistently it's standing out in your speech. And so a lot of students, when they come to me, they're coming to me to find out what to study. And here's a situation where I am telling him what the area is to focus on. And then he told me that he hasn't been doing exercise, because I've been telling him, so I need you to study this sound 5 minutes a day. And so I asked him, have you been studying 5 minutes a day? He said, no. It's like, okay. No. So I asked him, how much time has he been putting in studying? He said, in the past, I put in about 6 minutes a week. So it's very interesting, right? Because I think when we think about rejection and we zoom out, it can be very valuable. So basically, when a student tells me this, I talk everything back. If you tell me something, I tell you that same thing you told me. 1, as just to make sure I'm on the same page, but then 2, so that way you can hear it yourself. Because sometimes you don't fully understand what you're saying
Yeah.
until someone uses the exact words back to you. So I told him, okay, so let me just make sure I'm understanding. You studied this sound for 6 minutes a week. And he said, yes. And then I asked him, are you still doing it now? Are you still doing the 6 minutes a week now? And he said, no. And I was like, okay. When did you stop doing the 6 minutes a week? He said, oh, it was a while ago because I felt like it wasn't working. So I said, okay. So you studied something for 6 minutes a week and you decided that that amount of time wasn't working. And at that moment, we have two choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can say, I'm putting in this much time. I'm not getting the result. So I can do more and see if I get a different result. Or the other side is I can do less. And he opted for less. Because he said, if this 6 minutes a week isn't working, then I'm not doing it. I don't think there's necessarily a right. There's not really a right or wrong. It's all about what do you want. Right?
Yeah.
And obviously, he wanted that 6 minutes a week more than he wanted the result that he was looking for, because he chose not to anymore.
And we talked about. So I did. There was an open mic that I went to yesterday, and there was this little Q&A after I performed, and we talked about this a little bit. And one of the things, and I got it a lot from my experiences here, with you, but then also just my experiences just as an artist. Just in general. And I think that once you're able to process a space like that, now what is kind of needed is the purest kind of honesty that you can conjure in that space. Because a lot of times artists are telling themselves that, hey, I want these things to happen. But their habits and the things they actually do when the opportunity arises are in conflict with those goals. You know what I mean? If I remember somebody was they were really nervous about performing, and they were I'm just and this is a big block for them. They were just I'm so nervous about performing. But there were also a person that was I know my poetry is just amazing. I know my poetry is great. I just have a hard time performing. So I just have to really prepare and work on it. When I'm by myself, you know what I mean, in my room, and I'll do that. And she was she was doing that for months. You know what I mean? She was practicing one poem for months. And I was just I think you kind of have it depending on what you want, right? If you're thinking, she was naming these other poets that she wanted to be both in the city and outside of the city and stuff like that, and just saying that she really wants to be on those platforms. She just once she kind of breaks down the barrier that she has with performing. And I was just I think that you're treating open mics as that opportunity. I think that if you're I really want to be those people, I really want to get on the level where those people are. If you never perform, you're not going to get there. I'll say this: you're not going to get there, or it's going to take you a long time to get there, because you're I need to practice for 2-3 months on a poem before I ever perform it. Are you going to do that for every poem? So now after you've performed that poem, you need to practice poem number 2 for 2-3 months before you can perform it. And then what if during that performance you realize, oh my gosh, there's other things I have to work on. And just much with your student, if 6 minutes a day,
a week,
or so, I'm sorry, that's the word. 6 minutes a week. At 6 minutes a week, maybe he sees improvement. So maybe he sees improvement at 1,000 minutes. If somebody told you you're going to see improve, no matter how long it takes you to get these minutes in, you're going to start seeing real improvement at 1,000 minutes. Are you still doing 6 minutes a week? Or are you let me commit myself to as long as, there's only 60 minutes in an hour. So how many hours do I need to get up to 1,000? And then after I figure that out, now it's okay, how many days is that going to take? It's going to take 6, 7, 8 days, whatever kind of works on my schedule. And I just think about stuff like that because I'm like, if somebody was to tell you that, hey, you're not going to, the performance anxiety that you have, it's I would even venture to say it gets worse. The more that you are pumping yourself up and you're like thinking like, okay, I can't do this yet, I can't do this yet. I would rather get on the open mic stage and like, actually, I implore people, lean into bombing at least once on an open mic, not at a performance, not where somebody's paying you. Like, if you feel like you're bombing, just like can push through the poem. The reason why is because I'm like, I've bombed before. And so now when I'm going on stage, I know the worst thing that can happen on here. You know what I mean? Like, I know the extent of this is me just not doing good in open mic. And the benefits that I get is like, now I get that I've been able to perform. I've been able to get that out of my system. Now it's like I can kind of work it into routine. So thinking about like your student, I think that's like really like important for like, you know, just everybody. Just, you have to be honest with the thing that you want. If you're saying that, hey, I want to make progress, if you're only willing to put in 6 minutes a week, then now you just have to get honest with how long before you see progress in your speech. Like, do you want it to be? Do you want to start seeing improvements in your speech by the end of July? Oh, then you gotta really hunker down. If you're like, oh, I'm fine with seeing progress in my speech by July of 2026, I'm like, okay, well then do whatever you want. Like, you're on the right path.
Yeah. You get the results for whatever you put in.
Yeah.
If you put in 6 minutes, then you'll get 6 minutes worth of results. And speaking of some examples with time, the government has a language program because, you know, they need agents and they need translators. So when they're training people for languages, they have a list like, oh, if you're trying to learn, for instance, Spanish, you're going to need 500 hours. If you're trying to learn Mandarin, you're going to need like 1,500 hours. And so they create entire course programs around that idea, so that way their participants, their students, are able to learn languages in 5 months to 12 months to a very high level, because they understand that we need this amount of hours, and so we're going to flood you with this amount of hours in a short time frame.
Yeah.
So again, it's I guess the idea of, are you going to get that 500 hours in the span of a month, or are you going to get that 500 hours in the span of 10 years? And you'll get there one way or another. It's just, what do you want that time frame to be? I think also about what you're saying about the poet, the stage. I think working backwards from models is very, very helpful. Anyone you see doing the thing that you want for yourself was at the moment where you are at some point, to some degree. So then we can ask ourselves, how did they become who they are? Like, who do I need to become as a poet for that sort of success that I want to occur? If I want to be a poet who is confident at performing, and I'm not currently a poet who is confident at performing, then I need to ask myself, who do I personally need to become to achieve that goal? And that's always, I think, that when you think about any sort of goal, I think that's the biggest part. It's not about achieving the goal. It's about who do you become to achieve the goal. You have to change.
Yeah. I think a lot of people kind of exist within, and it's actually so, because I was talking to another poet, and we talked a little bit after my show, but then we were messaging each other, and like another poet in our community like told him that he said, hey, you're naturally gifted, you just have to put more effort into it, you have to put more energy into it. And I almost not recoil, but I'm hesitant to try to assign any kind of natural gifts to anybody, right? And I think the problem with that is like a lot of people live within that fallacy, and that's the reason why they are hesitant to try as ardently as they possibly can at something, because they're like, well, I'm already naturally good, I can just kind of slide into whatever talent preset that I kind of want to, because enough people are telling me that. Like, you know, if you've performed a poem on an open mic or anywhere, you represent a singular percentile within the population of people that write poems. You know what I mean? And so you're already like you're speaking on a microphone. That's like huge. And I think a lot of people, because of the fact that they were like, oh, they're naturally gifted, naturally talented. Like, yeah, they, especially if they start trying. Now, if they start trying and they're not great, or they're not even as good as somebody that they perceive to be trying really hard, then they're gonna feel kind of like rejected by the craft, because they're like, oh, I'm meant to do this because I'm so naturally gifted and naturally talented. So now that I'm not here, like, what does that mean? And so I'm always like when I was talking to him, I was just like, I think that, I think that you're a good speaker, and like you do good at open mics, but it's also like you've also been speaking for a long time. You've also been going to mics for a long time. So I don't think that it's like a natural gift. I think that you are a compilation of the things that you have done over and over and over again. You know what I mean? Like that, like, I don't think these things are just like these natural, oh my gosh, skills. It's like, no, like, you write, so you push yourself into that, and now you're getting better at writing. You speak on the mic a lot, and so now you are much better. You should be much better than you were before. And I think that now that, again, he kind of like stepped away and he wasn't performing as much and wasn't writing as much, I'm like, those senses kind of dulled, because like you're not sharpening them over time. And I think if you apply yourself and you push towards those things, like, you can resharpen those things and you can even get better. And yeah, just like exactly what you're saying, I think that there is no shortage of ways that you can be better at whatever you're doing, and that you can grow whatever you're doing. And it's not some like natural preset. It's like, these are things that you're just putting together because you're always doing them.
I want to connect that to something you said earlier, which I thought was an interesting definition. You gave, I don't know if you intended to, but you gave a definition of success, and you said that it's something that goes the way that you want to, which I think is an interesting way to view it, because I think that it highlights how success isn't an objective thing. You can look at someone who's successful and be like, I wouldn't want that life. I don't actually view that as a success, because you might be like, well, they're not doing this, or they're not doing this. Yeah, they're doing the one thing, but something else I personally view as more important. So I like that it kind of captures that objective nature, because it also highlights the fact that if success is something that goes the way I want it to, then it's also something that I determine for myself. And it's something that I talk about a good amount, is that, I determine the metric for success. You mentioned about the chapbook, like making a chapbook to go into a specific competition, and if it doesn't win the competition, then I get upset, because it's like, I made it for this thing and now it didn't get into the thing. Yeah. Well, I certainly could get upset about that. I think that's reasonable, but I could also change it, right? I could be like, instead of being like, I need this chapbook to get into this specific place, the thing that I want is for the chapbook to get into this specific place. I can change the thing that I want. So maybe instead of wanting it to go into a specific journal, I can say instead, you know what, I want this chapbook instead to do something else.
Yeah. And so it also kind of goes into like, what is the actual product that you're creating? Because if I'm making if I'm writing a chapbook, if the only purpose of the chapbook is to kind of get into this competition, then I haven't actually created a purpose around the work that I'm doing. Because now, again, the way that I work now, like the work that I'm doing, I can, if it doesn't get accepted here, I can change some things about like the bio or how I'm kind of formulating kind of like some of the wording for my submission, and I can send it over to somewhere else. And it's not talked about as much, but like, I got into this film festival. I've been rejected from 7 others. You know what I mean? And it's even to a greater degree on the poetry end. So yeah, like there's there's just like there's this mindset where, okay, like I understand that this, whatever I created right now is not, happening here, or it's not going to be, I guess, successful as it pertains to its submission to this place. But like, does that make it unsuccessful? It does not by any stretch. Like, I created something that I enjoy, that I think is good, I think is positive, and regardless of whether it gets over here, like if it doesn't, like at some point I'm going to be like, okay, I'll just publish it myself, and I'll like take a different route. But it's not something that renders what I did or the efforts in that regard as like unsuccessful. Something that is actually like that stuck with me is actually something that Kobe Bryant said, like, probably like a little over a decade ago. Was it Baron Davis? It wasn't Baron Davis. It was another point guard. It was a point guard. I know he played for the Kings, but I can't remember. For some reason, his name is not coming. But he was a pretty talented, popular point guard, and he had this game where he went 0 for 9 in the first half. So in the first half of the game, he went 0 for 9 shooting, and then he ended the game 0 for 9. So for the rest of that game, he was pretty much just passing, or you know what I mean, or setting up plays or whatever the case is, and the Kings did lose the game. And it was a big headline. They were like, he went 0 for 9, 0 for 9, 0 for 9. And a separate interview somewhere else, like it was like a post game, like I think it was a post game interview somewhere else, like a reporter asked Kobe, was like talking about the game, it was like, yeah, he went like 0 for 9, like what do you think about that? And Kobe was like, 0 for 9? I would have went 0 for 30 before I go 0 for 9. And I'm like, it blew my mind, because I'm like, immediately I'm like, 0 for 30 is a worse percentage, like for sure. But it's like, if you go 0 for 9 in the first half and then you still only have, that means you quit. That means 9 was the amount of perceived failures that it took you to say, okay, I can't, like, I'm passing up on that for like from here on out. And now, granted, Kobe is a different player than a lot of other players, but it's just to say that, like, and I'm speaking from experience, but I'm also speaking from like perception of the other people's experiences. It's like, if somebody were to tell you you're going to make your 31st shot, but you're gonna miss every single shot until number 31, and then after number 31, it's gonna be maybe you make half of your shots, maybe you make a third of your shots. Does that mean that you don't take 30 shots, or are you gonna try to get those 30 shots out the way? And I think that's like a really good thing when it comes to like repurposing and like thinking about projects that you're submitting out. It's like, I tried this way, wasn't successful. I might try that way again. I might try that way 5 more times. And then the next time, I'm going to try a different way. And then the next time, I'm going to try a different way. I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep putting attempts out there. But I'm never going to be like, oh, I've taken the amount of shots that I'm willing to take.
I think one of the things, if we're using like basketball, if you think about shot, it doesn't really matter where you take the shot from. They're all considered shots. I could shoot from half court, that's a shot. I could do a layup, that's a shot. I could shoot.
They said this year, this is good non sequitur, but this season, or this coming up season, like full court heaves, they're not going to count during your shot percentage.
Okay,
but that's a non sequitur. That has
and it's still, it's still considered a shot from the team perspective. It still goes down to the shot. It's just it's not an individual stat.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
But like shots, no matter what, it's a shot. Yeah. Doesn't matter if you're double team. Doesn't matter if you're triple team. Doesn't matter if it's a layup. Doesn't matter. A shot is always considered a shot, which on the one hand it's kind of crazy, right? Because there's a lot of factors that go into a shot. Yeah. But the only thing that people keep track of is the fact that you took a shot.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we need to consider as well. I think that if for your art or your writing, I think it can be really helpful to put yourself in a position where you have to take on that role of, I mean, technically it is kind of gatekeeping, but if you don't like that term, you could say judge or reviewer or whatever the term may be, who determines, curator, who determines if a piece moves forward and is accepted or not. Because once you do that, you understand that the reasons for a work being accepted or rejected have very often little to do with the quality of the work. Whereas I think for a lot of poets and artists who get those rejections, who get upset about it, I think a lot of times we're taking that as like almost like condemnations on the quality of what we produce, when in reality there's obviously other factors at play, right? There's a difference between taking a shot at full court versus taking a layup. We don't take it that way, though. We only see it as, oh, you took a shot, especially if you're just looking at the box score, right? So one of the things that happens when you're a judge is you start understanding, oh, I really like this piece, but we already published it. We already accepted a piece that's doing a very similar thing. Or, oh, I'm very sick today, so when I was reading the submissions, I didn't realize that you did something in your work that was actually really innovative, and I just completely was off guard because I just wasn't feeling my best when I was reading it. Or it could be, oh, we saw a lot of pieces this issue that almost went for a theme. So it's like, oh, let's make kind of like a themed issue, kind of special, impromptu. Sorry, your work's not fitting that. It's really good. Yeah. So all this to say is that we're only viewing our work and submissions as single shots, but in reality, the editors, there's so many other factors that are going into it that quality is not the reason the work was turned down. I think especially if you're looking at top tier journals, I mean, yeah, they're famous journals. It's like Harvard, you know, people are going to apply to Harvard that like, you know, almost failed out of high school and stuff like that. They're still going to apply, right? Yeah. And some of them may even get in, you know. But in general, the chances of that happening are small. In general, once Harvard is going to remove those sorts of applicants, they can still pick any year from probably like 10,000, 20,000 applicants, and any one of them would be fine. And they know that. Yeah. At some point, quality is not going to be the determiner. There's going to be other factors at play. And so the sooner I think that we can go back to the idea of success as being something that I determine for myself and can turn it away from something that I don't have control over, right? I don't have control over the defense the team plays on me. I don't have control over how the editor's feeling when they're reviewing my submission. I don't have control over the submissions that came in before mine or after mine. I don't have control over any of those things, but I do have control over how I'm going to respond to whatever happens. Change the metric. Focus on something else that you do have control over. I don't want to get upset because someone else, for whatever, has some power over me. I'm the one that has power over me. Like, I'm going to focus on things I can control. Yeah. And I'm going to determine my happiness and my joy entirely on that.
Yeah. Because it's also, you know, we were talking about slam, like in one of these podcasts, and we're talking about like there's a tendency for, and we've seen it. I don't know. I can't remember if you said you've seen it, but I've definitely seen it where like after slam, people will come up to, like, if you lost the slam, right? Then you'll go up to the judges and you'll be like, you know, what did I do wrong? Like, what could I do to improve? And I'm just like, I'm like, that's not, don't do that. Don't do that. But it's also, I think that you're now using this randomized kind of judging platform as like a metric for whatever your work is doing. You know what I mean? And like giving somebody who you don't know, that a lot of times is just randomly picked from the audience, giving them that much power over whether or not you view your work as doing something that you think your work should be doing, especially if you're genuinely exploring what your work should be doing. Like if somebody's like, okay, this is what I do with my work, and this is how I do it with my work, and this is why I do it with my work, and then a judge somewhere being like, oh, that poem's a 6, which for Geoff was amazing, but for a lot of people, 6 sounds pretty good to me. It's above average. But for a lot of people, again, for a lot of slams, like a 6 is like not good. So like then trying to go up to that judge and be like, what can I change about something that I've already defined in for myself, like really well. I think that's way too much credit even to give to somebody, let alone like weight to give to their like opinions. And so it's just like this thought that, you know, when you're thinking about your work, or when you're thinking about like your performances, even in a way, it's like you don't know what could be affecting that person's opinion or perception of your work. And because you don't know what those things are, like you're trying to reformulate your entire personality and skill set and what you do around somebody who's legitimately just an observer of your work. They might not even be in the world of your work. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people are creating work out there that is speaking to an audience that's very specific and is doing it incredibly well. And it might be because of the fact that it's a genuine outpour of your personality, who you are. And so like, yeah, like somebody might get your submission and they're like, they just can't connect. Because in as much as it could just be they're having a bad day, they're hungry, and so they're just trying to, you know, read these and they're just like kind of out of it. Or, you know, a lot of times they're like, I'm super late to reviewing my submissions, and these things are due tomorrow at 1 p.m. and I have 50 of them to go through, so I'm just going to read 3 lines off of a poem, and if that doesn't catch me, I'm just going to send it out. I'm like, that it happens a lot more than you think. And so I think it's a lot more important to be like, okay, what makes this work successful, or what makes this work good to me or worthwhile to me, that is completely detached from a process that volatile.
And I know we've been going for a minute, so we'll maybe try to close out soon, but I think that speaks to one of the examples that we talked about earlier, where, again, if you talk back something, you can understand just kind of how absurd it sounds. So I talk back with the students. He's told me he's studying 6 minutes a week, and I said, so you're studying 6 minutes a week, and are you getting the result you wanted? Imagine having that conversation with an editor. You got a poem rejected, and you ask the editor, why did you reject it? And they say to you, I had to get through 30 submissions. One of our reviewers was sick and couldn't review, so I got handed 50 submissions to read 50 minutes before our meeting to determine. And talk that back. So you had to read 50 submissions in 50 minutes for your meeting.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, I want to give that person power over me to like determine how I feel about my work?
Yeah.
Because I could see that situation happening at a journal. I refuse to believe of all the journals that are out there right now, there are hundreds if not thousands, that a situation like that has never happened. I refuse to believe. I refuse to believe that. You know,
it's for sure happened.
So,
I can't explain how I know.
I just refuse to believe it. Maybe it's not that exact,
happened.
But I'm sure there's been a situation where it's like you have to get through an absurd amount of submissions in a very short time frame.
And it's not as rare.
Yeah,
it's not rare.
And so, if you're listening to us talk and you're like, if I was in that situation, I talked to the editor and they told me that reasoning. Well, I think the other question is, would you also feel as bad for being rejected?
Yeah, that's the T.
You'd probably be like, you didn't even. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I still wanted to get accepted, but it's like, well, suddenly it's different because you changed the frame, right? Because now you're understanding. Mm-hmm. There's always going to be a frame around the rejection. There's always going to be a reason around it. So again, my push would be, instead of having it be something that's external that you have no control over, and letting that determine what makes a success or what makes a failure, put it to something that you do have control over, that's reasonable for the situation that you're in right now.
Yeah. A couple of years ago, like during it was like the Super Bowl that Kansas City, this is one of the ones that they lost.
This year?
No, not this year.
Well, that was a good one. Sorry. Go Birds.
Oh, God. But no, a few years ago, it was like the the 40. Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, it was a year that the Eagles beat the Kansas City. But yeah, but during that game, especially in the fourth quarter of the game, like they were like breaking down Patrick Mahomes' like throws, and they were showing him like these were excellent throws. It just his receivers were not catching it. Yeah. Like there was one that went out to a tight end, and the ball literally hit him right there in the numbers, and he like goes like this, and he fumbles it out, and it falls out. And I think that's like a really good example of like, you know, Patrick Mahomes. He trains and he practices and he does, he's like an incredibly hardworking athlete. And on game day, he put his best foot forward, and his job, what he was doing, was as good as I think you can ask a QB to be. You know what I mean? But in order for them to score points, it requires like a ton of other factors, like different like blocking, whether or not somebody catches, all these things are kind of factors. And I think that's like a kind of a point on our end. Like, you know, if you're the Patrick, like let's say you're the Patrick Mahomes of your operation, it's like the only thing you can really do is put your best foot forward and throw as, you know, no, if all of my receivers just are terrible that day and they've not caught, if I've thrown 12 throws and 0 of them have been caught, like I'm gonna throw a 13th. You know, I'm gonna throw a 25th. I'm gonna throw a 30th. It's like that's kind of the name of the game. The name of the game is like, okay, even if I haven't gotten the desired result out of this space, like my desired result was to throw the football on the numbers. That's what I wanted out of this day. And I believe, and this is something that you can believe too, I believe that if I do that enough, then an acceptable amount of those will be caught. You know what I mean? Same thing with, like, you know, if you're taking the publishing route or if you're taking whatever route, it's like you got to put up the attempts that you can with the best efforts that you can, and then be happy, or at the very least to be like anticipate an acceptable number of those things being the thing that you desire coming out of that. And in that way, I mean, that's as good of any process to go down to kind of reshape whatever success is for you.
Any kind of final thoughts just on failure, perceptions of failure?
No, I think that's pretty much everything I had.
We'd love to know if you guys have specific metrics that you're using for your own art. We'd love to know them. We'll be back next week with another edition of Arts and Offers. Thanks for hanging with us. Once again, my name's Geoff.
I'm Matthias.
We'll see you guys later. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon. Take care, guys. Bye.
See you.